Okay, we are here at a closing. We are filming this one because it was a very unique project here. I actually started tracking this house 6 years ago, gave it to some students, nothing happened. 3 years ago, Lewis here, a former student, comes to the Fort Worth Real Estate Club. I gave him the lead 3 years ago, and then all kinds of stuff started happening. And finally, Shyla, who was involved in the whole 3 years, telling us you're gonna have to do this, and this, and this, and this to get a clean title, is here to just tell us a little bit of some of the things she ran into. But quickly, I'll tell you, this house was a 322 brick. When I gave Lewis the lead, it had been given to several students. So if you're new and starting out, you gotta remember, this is a business, this is a job. This isn't just, it falls in your lap. I know most people want to go and get, because this was a probate, people are now buying these probate lists. This was not on a probate list. I like getting to properties before, I like getting to them when the heirs don't even know they have something typically, but they're harder to work. Lewis and I have done several. In fact, the first one Lewis got, this was the first lead I ever gave him, but the first one he ever got paid on was kind of what we call a pre-probate. Husband died, wife was in nursing home. Little clue, Lewis visited the nursing home, but that first one, our check was
16 each.
16 each. So yeah, we assigned it, made 32,000, and we split it 50-50, because when I give my students leads, we tend to split them 50-50. Yeah. Same thing today. So real quick, I'll give you the part everybody likes, which is, we got it, it took 3 years. It's not the only deal we work, or you'd be in trouble, because it's not, but we assigned it for $39,000, and then we split that 50-50. The guy that I called a few people. I called Tyler. Tyler comes to the club periodically, but he's also a builder. He bought it because we had a lot that came with it next door. So we sold him the house and the lot, so he'll rehab the house, do the lot. I'm gonna let Lewis go real quick, tell you some of the things he ran into, about everything from how hard it was to find them and what happened after we find them and got the contract. So you can tell a little bit.
Yeah, the girls that were going to inherit the house, as it turned out, didn't even live in the U.S. and so kind of got lucky there with a lead that I found, an internet lead, and I'm going to kind of save the rest of that.
Yeah.
But I was
Top secret.
I was able to find one of these heirs and negotiate with her by email and phone, and got the contract that way, and that would be 3 years ago in September or August.
Almost 3 years.
Yeah, so nearly 3 years, but we couldn't close, or they couldn't sell it to me because they at that point weren't heirs, and there were other heirs before them, 4 of them actually, or 3 of them, that also were all deceased, and nobody had any wills. So we had to go through quite a process to establish the proper heirship and bring that to them, to trace all of that.
Shyla will tell you a little bit about that in a minute.
Right.
And then as we thought we got it cleared and Shyla did her part, I'm gonna let Lewis continue, because the next phase came in that we weren't expecting.
Yeah, well, at one point, because these girls, the heirs to be, didn't live in the country, the property taxes came due, and they weren't really understanding that or following that very carefully, and it actually ended up on an auction list. And at that point, someone found that, and this person filed a quitclaim deed as though the deceased owner of the house had quitclaimed that property to her in 2009, which itself sounds kind of fishy that you lay there for 8 or 9 years. But so we figured out, just kind of by some snooping, that it was actually a fraudulent deed. The grantee of the deed was also the notary on the deed. Although she tried to disguise that, that's what it was. But we had to have another attorney help us to get her to release that and to deed it back to the girls.
So a recap was, once he made contact, this is what's great about it, we got it under contract. That way, once we get it into probate, which we brought it to Brandon here at the title company, put it into probate, because once it goes into probate, then the list gets created that everybody's out there buying. But then we already have the contract. 2, the thief, she comes in and tries to steal the property, but we also filed Remember, I totally blanked. The memorandum to protect our contract because we knew it was gonna get a little crazy and people out there today are not always with integrity and character doing the business. Which, not just her trying to steal the property, but then a second attorney had to be hired. Lewis and the heirs did that, and that attorney had to get the woman, was gonna take her to court, but she admitted, that she did do it. But it was only after she wrote a letter putting a curse. This is the first time in 32 years had a curse supposedly thrown on us, but she tried to say the Almighty is gonna curse you, and I just kinda, my response to Lewis was tell her the Almighty didn't give her permission to steal the house. So anyway, it was very weird, and then Shyla steps in. She's dealing with Brandon's side and the heirship stuff. What were some of the other crazy things you knew that had to be straightened out on this thing? I know we gave a lot of it, but you can kind of tell some of the.
Well, just the amount of affidavits of heirship that we had to do, and the entire family is deceased. Not being able to get good information for those affidavits or corroborating witnesses that would, that felt I mean, that took what, 6 months or more?
Yeah.
So just to get the affidavits signed, that's been the longest process I've ever been through as far as affidavits are concerned. And then the faulty quitclaim deed, I've never experienced that before. I've heard about it before, but I've never actually had it on title before, and yeah, without you going and hiring an attorney, there's absolutely nothing we can do.
Right, and the other thing too is before the attorney, we didn't mention it, but while they were stealing the property, they were rehabbing the property. So they ripped the roof off, put on a new roof, gutted the entire house. We met a couple of times with the sheriff out there, but the sheriff had to go with his law and says, can you prove you're on title? And we're like, no, but we're trying to. And so the sheriff said, everybody's to leave and do nothing. Mm-hmm. A week later, they were back out there, called the sheriff again. And then I think they kind of stayed away for a bit, but they had done a lot. And we could tell they'd been back and forth. But
the sheriff didn't like it. He was getting
irritated.
Kind of irritated with us because it was like he said, it's a civil matter. It really wasn't anything he could do it until he had something from the courts saying whose property it was. He couldn't really do anything.
So even though we had a contract, you had to have the deed, and the only deed in existence at the time was the lady who had passed away. How long ago? It was like
2009.
Passed away in 2009,
10 years
and she happened to miraculously sign a deed.
Right on her deathbed,
just before she died.
I mean, like 2 weeks before she died.
Yeah. So Lewis noticed because of that, he saw something looked a little weird on that quitclaim, did a little more investigating, and that's when we found out, okay, we've got to hire an attorney. So we've talked about if we do another live probate training. We've had Shyla speak at them before. We've had Brandon speak at them. This time I'm going to have Lewis do a section because finding the people, you mailing cards and letters, that is one of the ways we find deals. But there's hundreds and hundreds of ways we do it. We don't usually look on lists. I don't buy a probate list. I don't buy any list. I want to get a hold of people, and that was the key. When you find them, you got to get under contract before you get it into probate. Because once it goes into probate, everybody knows about it. And there's 7 really good ways to buy probates, and we talk about that in our trainings. If you ever want to network with these guys, they're always at the real estate club. Shyla is our #1 closer. We close here unless some weird thing periodically somebody tells us we have to close somewhere else. She had worked with Tyler before too, so Tyler was pretty easy to work with. All that was great, but we all waited on a package to go to Puerto Rico, and FedEx doesn't leave Puerto Rico every day. They leave, I guess, every other day. So everything you could think of, things she had never seen, Brandon had never seen, I had never seen, Lewis discovered some stuff. But when it's all done and over, we assigned it for $39,000. Probates do have typically a much larger profit margin. Anything else you want to add to it, Lewis?
Well, this thing had drama right up to the end. I mean, there was all of a sudden something popped up where there might be yet another undiscovered heir, or at least one that they couldn't quite.
Oh yeah, that's right. The daughter.
I didn't know about that. I just thought.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So it was
No,
done and
no,
all
no,
about
no.
it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she's good there. Everybody's good, and you don't want to see another one that tricky again soon, right? It had a lot. I can't remember all the different things, but I know we had a
3
meeting.
years worth of things.
Yeah, and we had a meeting at this table with Brandon, with Shyla, and me and you, still trying to work this deal. But the key is, this isn't the only one. There's more in the pipeline, but we want you guys to know, come to the real estate club, work with professionals that know what they're doing. People will tell you all kinds of stuff. I look at it this way. My only thing I ever ask Shyla 99% of the time is, am I getting a title policy? And is the check made out correctly? And is the amount correct?
And let me just clarify this. Did you sit back and let title handle everything, or did you work for your money?
We worked.
Yeah, no, we had to
Lewis worked
chase
a lot.
some leads for sure.
Yeah, you don't just, they're not doing the deal for you, they're closing the transaction.
I'll
Lewis
hold the
had,
flashlight and show you how to get down the path.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to go down the path.
she's not crawling into the dark hole. Lewis was willing to crawl in, I gave him the lead, and that's why when I do my trainings, I try to give them to my students, because I already know they've been trained properly, and they don't have to ask me, so what do we do here, what do we do here? It's like, he already knows what to do, and he discovered some new things to do. So this was a good one to video. We closed it nearly 3 years. And again, for me, I look at it and go, well, it was at least 6 when I first spotted the thing. But that means to me, and I see them out there, and I give a lot of leads to different students, but I also give them to Lewis. Sometimes I give it to 4 or 5 at the same time, and 9 out of 10 times I know Lewis is the one that's gonna go get it, because Lewis is more aggressive. And there are different people who have different personalities and they work and all that stuff, but the more aggressive you are, the more set that you wanna get paid, you'll get it done. So I think that was it. Shyla Capital Title right here in downtown Fort Worth. Lewis comes to the Real Estate Club, Fort Worth Real Estate Club. I'll just mention right now, I don't want to date the video, but we got a great speaker coming up next week. We're always the second Thursday. Right now, we are still currently at the Botanical Gardens, and we've got a guy that's coming in next week that'll take a single family home and show you how to net $15,000 a month on a single family home. He says you can net up 5, 10, or 15 depending on the house, but it deals with assisted living. So, see you guys soon. Probate is a great way. I think every deal you and I have done is either probate or pre-probate. Shyla will tell you, I don't think I ever bring anything, except maybe this new mobile home we just brought in. He's alive for now. I mean, so that's not a probate, but a lot of our stuff we do is probate because there's just less competition and the profit margins are higher. Anything you guys want to say? All right, we'll see you at the club. Take care. God bless.